Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Is this already working? Okay, fine. Yeah, I've lived in several countries. I lived in China, in Singapore, in Asia, and in the US, and of course also here in Germany. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here today to talk about innovation steering at Evonik. You may have noticed that it's already the second guy from Evonik talking to you today, or on this conference. Yesterday was Stefan speaking, our head of the Creavis. And I will give you a different perspective of innovation, what we are doing at Evonik. We'll give you the whole picture, how innovation is structured at Evonik, how we steer it from the corporate perspective. And I hope that you will get some tools, some frameworks that you might also apply at your own company. Yeah. So, even as Stefan has presented yesterday about Evonik, some people in the breaks I noticed don't know exactly what we are doing. So we'll go briefly through the slides I've prepared. So what we don't produce car tires, or we don't produce mattresses, towels, or chickens. Yeah, that's what we don't do. However, what we do, we make car tires more fuel saving, towels more fluffier, or chicken more healthier, or ensure that the active pharmaceutical ingredients of tablets are more effective, coming to the right place in your body. So I would assume that even without knowing, every one of us has used an Evonik product today without noticing it, that it came from Evonik. Yeah. So just an overview of the numbers, how big we are. We are a 13 billion euro company, 36,000 people work for Evonik in more than 100 countries. We have EBITDA of more than 2 billion euros achieved in last year. It's quite a good EBITDA margin, 16–18% in that range. And we have way more than 500 R&D projects. And that's, of course, something which you need to steer, which direction, which projects you want to do and which not. And that's something I will talk about. We have increased our innovation spending over the last years, even more than our sales have grown. So we're spending about 450 million euros on innovation. It's about 2,700 people on about 37 sites all over the world. And this money is spent basically 90% on incremental innovation. That's mostly done in our business segments, and I will explain this in more detail on the next slides. And only 10% is on transformational, and that's maybe to increase. And this transformational innovation is also mainly done at Creavis, what Stefan already has talked about. And in addition to that, we have talked here or heard about a lot about venture capital. I think it's also important not to show just how much we spend every year on R&D, but also take into account our investments into Evonik or in startups. So we have over the medium term, not every year, but over the medium term, we spent about 100 million euros in investment. And I think you need to take this into account, talk about innovation, do it by yourself or buy it in. There are different strategies for different companies or different fields. So some examples, what kind of innovations we have already achieved. One is, for example, in aquaculture. I said we make chicken healthier, now we make also shrimps healthier. We have developed a dipeptide that has higher nutritional value. It reduces the cost to produce the shrimps, and it also reduces the water pollution. So it's basically a win-win for everybody. And it's a new product which we introduced several months, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, and it's quite successful. Another topic, biosurfactants. That are surfactants which are based on renewable materials, but also which are based via biotechnology. And these have better performance characteristics. They are smoother to the skin, have better performance, and they have also no problems with hard water. And they are also biodegradable. So they come from nature, have a better performance, and go back to nature. Again, win-win for everybody involved there. And third and last example is a green tire. We improve the performance of tires, that we make sure that the braking distance is shorter, that the fuel consumption is going down, and of course less fuel, lower noise emission levels, that is not so loud. And these three topics is quite difficult. You can make one better and then the other two getting worse. So handling all three is quite a challenge, but here our silica organosaline systems doing very well in this area. So again, three topics from totally different areas, which shows you that Evonik is really active in a lot of areas. So the organizers, and thank you again for the invitation here, asked me to talk about jumping the S-curve, and I'm happy to do that. I think you're from innovation, you have heard many times about the S-curve. And what I want to show you is that we have jumped as Evonik several times the S-curve. We were founded here in 1847 with Goldschmidt, and so that some companies celebrated their 150 years of existence. Evonik even has a longer history. However, these companies have changed. We were called Degussa Hüls, and now Evonik since about 10 years, and we celebrated a new name, a new company as it is today. Well, what the picture should show that, I mean, over these 170 years, we have jumped the S-curve several times. And what's important there to jump is two things, from my perspective, is first of all, when you come into this stage, that you need the incremental innovation to prolong the S-curve, to defend your business, to be more profitable, and to ensure the profitable growth of your existing business. But on the other side, if you're still profitable here, then you need to look at disruptive innovation or transformative innovation, to build something up new, either inside your company or to acquire it outside, or to invest in startups to bring in this for the new growth. The growth will not come from this incremental innovation. You have to do really something new. And allow me one comment about disruptive innovation. Chemical industry is a lot about assets and a lot of investments, but we've seen also examples in other industries, very famous. Nobody had expected, I guess, disruption in the taxi industry or in the hotel industry. And I think there is a good chance that also we will see disruptive innovation in the chemical industry. But when we are not prepared and we just see it, then it's too late for us. So I think even if we don't see it now, we have to work on that. That brings me to derive from that what is the role of innovation at Evonik. We have 4 roles. The first one is maintaining the competitive position. That's what I showed with prolonging the S-curve. Really defend the business, and that's something which is not clear to everyone who's running a business, who talks about R&D budget. That one of the biggest tasks is first of all to keep the market share, to ensure that the competitive position is defended. So that's the first thing. Then from there, if you defend your business, and the second one is that you extend your business, you grow from there in areas that are adjacent to your current business. That's the second one. And the third one, what we call create, is that you really go out of the space where you're currently active, that you create really new businesses that adds into the growth, or where the main growth is coming from. And when you do these 3 things correct, then this can be used. This can be used to increase the reputation of your company. That Evonik is seen as a leader in innovation. And I will show you some slides how we stand there also. So overall, if this works very well, then for sure also Evonik's enterprise value is increased. So these are the 4 roles of innovation, and I will show how we steer this with respect to these roles on the next slide. So this is Evonik. Stefan yesterday already said that we have 3 specialty chemical segments. Resource efficiency and nutritional care are our growth segments. There we want to grow. Whereas performance materials is our financing business. That's basically the cash cow where we earn the money to fund the growth in the other two segments. This relates the strategic goals or strategic roles of the businesses in these segments also translate to the structure of the innovation. The innovation here in resource efficiency, they have 9 business lines or strategic business units. They have their own innovation, but there's also a new business development on segment level where synergies are taken care of between the 9 business lines within the segment. In nutritional care, it's similar, although there's a little bit different reporting lines. However, in both it's focused on growth and they have new business development. Performance materials, there is no NBD organizations, just focus on cash flow, and innovation is done in the business lines. They have 6 business lines, and they mainly focus on process innovation to ensure that their profitability is fine, that they contribute to the EBITDA, but there's no focus on growth. Then we have corporate innovation, corporate center. We have also corporate strategy, where we set up digital GmbH with about 20 people. This is not something I want to talk about today, but I just want to emphasize that this is an important thing for us, that we are active there. But today I want to talk about how innovation is steered from the corporate perspective. And we have a governance model as a strategic holding, which is shown here on the left side. I want to focus on the right side, what corporate innovation is doing. What's the role of corporate innovation. And these are 3 roles. So the first role is transformative innovation, that this is our role really to ensure that there are the 4 segments, or we have 22 business lines, that there's a 23rd business line coming up. That's the first role. The second role is steering of innovation, the innovation strategy. That's also my part, that I'm responsible as the head of innovation strategy, corporate innovation strategy, to steer that our innovation is aligned with our corporate goals, with our corporate strategy. And the third role is that the support of our operative units, that we show them what are the new tools in the area of open innovation, or some new frameworks. We have a consulting team which just consults internally on innovation projects. This is something where we support the innovation activities in the business lines. These roles have then, it's not an organizational chart, but it's how we structure this. Corporate innovation has these 3 roles, and this can be broken down into this task. So we have here Creavis and Evonik Venture Capital, and I'll briefly talk about that. Then steering is done in controlling and strategy and marketing. I will talk about strategy, as is my role. And support, best practices, I will show you some examples. And I will not talk about the consulting or intellectual property management. So Creavis, I think Stefan has told you yesterday a lot about it. Don't want to go into detail there. And you will get the slides if you're interested in that. It's 200 people there working on really transformational innovations at Evonik. And what I found very interesting to hear, or what I get feedback from colleagues in the chemical industry, is this work in project houses, these joint ventures. What Stefan yesterday also explained, joint venture between an operative unit and the corporate here Creavis, which works on new technology platforms. Corporate venturing, I think also we have this since 2012, and was listening to the discussion. I think many points why we are doing this were already mentioned. Certainly we are also not doing this just for the purpose of financial investments to get a good return. Certainly this is also one goal, but not the most important goal. The goal is more strategic roles. Strategic goals, we invest in startups, but also in funds. And yes, it supports our cooperation with the startups. But what I found the most important, at least from my perspective, is that before investing in these startups, we screen about let's say, several hundreds of startups every year. Yeah, and therefore we have a radar. What's going on in the industry? What's important for us? And this brings us so much innovation, so much information, so that we know what's going on. I think it's really a benefit what we get out of this corporate venturing, even not investing in hundreds of startups. And when we talk about disruptive innovation, that's certainly a radar. That's a radar screen where we see what can come up, and be prepared for that. So that's something I would, in addition to the discussion we had here, mention that this radar function of corporate venturing is very important. And I have to say, maybe one day, or hopefully, we will also have a venture client. Yeah. So this is going to strategy. Strategy starts with vision and with goals. Yeah, our vision is very ambitious. We want to become leading in innovation. Yeah, we have said several years ago, we want to become one of the leading companies in innovation. That's very ambitious. However, we are working on it, and we'll also show you later that several people trust that we can achieve this. We have set this quite a vision is cannot be really quantified. What does it mean? But our goals, we have set goals and quantified these goals. And the goals in the past, or the goals that we currently have, is to increase our innovation pipeline, to have new products on the market, and to improve our processes. However, currently working on new goals which are more directly linked to the business. How much sales growth do we achieve through innovation? And I will show this later, or explain this later in the framework that I want to share with you. Innovation strategy, just 2 points. We have introduced the framework that I will talk about later, where we have more focused our portfolio. We have defined 6 innovation growth fields about 2 years ago, or 1.5 years ago, where we focus our resources. Important approach, again, by partnering and venture capital. And it's not only investing, but it's really partnering, which I believe becomes more and more important. Setting up ecosystems. I think that is a way we, or also Evonik, should move forward. Innovation culture, I have one example how we try to improve this with our Enterpreneurship Award. And so these are the 3 things which together will help us, or the road to be leading in innovation. These are the 6 growth fields. What we did 1.5 years ago is that we looked at the mega trends, what's going on outside, but also what competencies do we have, and we defined certain criteria for our growth fields, and defined really these 6 growth fields: sustainable nutrition, advanced food ingredients, personal care, cosmetic solutions, and healthcare solutions, membranes, and additive manufacturing as the 6 growth fields where we, as Evonik, see the biggest potential for innovation-driven growth. We defined this, and we now look at what's the budget that's applied in this area, how is the progress, to ensure that we will get much more than 1 billion euros in additional sales from these growth fields, where there was zero in 2015. These are our growth fields, what we've done. Then if you have defined the strategy, then usually the next thing is portfolio management. Here a slide I really like from Arthur DeLittle. And then the stage gate project management. I don't want to talk about this. I just want to show that we have something here in between, something we call strategic buckets. And this framework I will try to explain now to you by starting with the innovation business case. Innovation business case is something where we say, well, 2016, last year's sales were at this level, and then we know if we don't do any innovation that our business will erode. That's this thing here. And that's, I think it's not public, but it's a one-digit percentage figure, yeah. And it's different for every business within Evonik, but the average is a one-digit figure, where we have to take care of, or we have to be aware that if we don't do any innovation, our business will erode. Yeah? And this is basically two drivers. This is the product life cycle, then we are back to the S-curve, yeah. And the second thing is the industry cost curve, yeah. If our processes get not updated, then we move out of the industry cost curve and be not competitive, and our sales will collapse. So it's an approach, certainly not linear every year in reality, but we use it to calculate in a linear way to steer our innovation activities. So then we have here one thing is innovation to maintain, defend. So that's supposed to be then the market growth. We have to do this innovation to ensure our competitive position. And then in the pipeline we have additional growth projects. We call it net innovation, yeah? Which is on top of that, which is the real growth on top of the market. Yeah? And then certainly it comes defining, depending on the targets. We set how much do we want to grow through innovation, that there might be a gap between the innovation, the target for innovation growth and what you have in your pipeline. So that's the framework. You look not convinced, or any questions? It's okay. Okay. Yeah, and with this framework, we have now defined our strategic buckets that we have here: create and extend. And remember, this fits very well to the roles of innovation that we have here. Really new business areas, and this is close to our existing business, and defend. And the fourth one is enable. That's our projects where we don't know. That could be a new technology platform, which we don't know. Is it for defend or is it create, extend? There's no business case for that. So that's, and it's also only a small percentage, which is basically supporting or feeding into the other three areas. So every project at Evonik is flagged with this kind of strategic bucket. And therefore, we know, when we know how to steer the innovation, where we have to do more. Either here defend, that we know or estimate the erosion rate and market growth. Do we have enough? And how much growth do we really get? Because in the past, when we just had a portfolio, and then you look at what we also seen yesterday, NPV over R&D costs, that's all nice to have. It's portfolio management. But for steering, for ensuring that we achieve our growth targets, you need to know where does the project go to. It could be a brand new product, but it's just a substitute, and it will not bring you any growth. So therefore, you need to understand where your innovation activity leads you. Yeah. And some examples for these strategic buckets: create, for example, is new 3D printing materials. There we have projects which brings us really additional growth. And extend, which brings us also additional growth, is this, the example I explained to you earlier. It's amino acids for aquaculture. And defend, a typical example, is process improvement for the defend area. So this is where we're standing in our achievement of the vision that people last year, Forza analysis said that we are innovative or very innovative. So it's like 3/4 of the people say we're already quite good there, and more than 50 people, 50% said that we can achieve Evonik's vision within the next years. That's maybe because of timing. I will skip through that. That's an overview about what we're doing, and I think Stefan has already talked about some of it. Corporate foresight, for example, yesterday, technology scouting, crowdsourcing. That's something, and I will share the slides with you, if that's an approach where we also work with people, the unusual suspects, not only within the supply chain, but also with companies really outside of our value chain. And if you're interested to work with us, then here's a contact. My colleague would be happy to contact with you or with your colleagues to see if there's something where we can collaborate. This is an example which Stefan yesterday showed as a crowdsourcing tool, where we get new ideas into the funnel. However, I want to show you that that this is important to foster our innovation culture. That we see that here more than 2,500 people joined this discussion, and this brings this topic of entrepreneurship to 2,500 people, which is, from my strategic perspective, more important than having one great idea at the end or 10, 20 great ideas, but to achieve, really to show the people here entrepreneurship is really something which is supported at Evonik. Here, the lady, Sarah, is now, she has a budget of, let's say, several €100,000 for 1 year, and she can focus purely on this, on her idea to develop this. So that's, if you have an idea, this shows you can even work within a corporation and try to make it big. Good. That's a summary. Yeah. I think I try to show that Evonik has jumped the S-curve several times, and what's important here, it's incremental and transformative innovation. It's both important, surely transformative innovation is more sexy, but incremental innovation is really core and it's needed. We have a decentralized R&D approach. Corporate innovation takes the role of guiding and steering the business innovation activities at Evonik. We have created a vision, targets, roadmap, and we're inviting partners to innovate with us. And last slide, it fits to the culture. I think if you're failing not here and there, then you're not innovative enough.